I can end this with one phone call. Madison Keen, just 23, delivers the line with the easy arrogance of someone who's never been denied a thing in her life. She leans forward slightly, eyes locked on the judge, her lips curved but not quite smiling, waiting for him to understand who she is. Judge Frank Caprio lowers his pen with calm precision. Miss Keene, threats don't travel well on the record. Do you understand the charges against you? I understand this is a misunderstanding, Madison replies coolly. That's not what I asked. Her attorney, Paul DeMarco, rises with the confidence of habit. Your Honor, this is a simple traffic matter. My client is prepared to pay any applicable fines and move forward today. Mr. DeMarco, sit down, Caprio says sharply. This court is not a payment portal. His words are quiet, but they strike like a gavel to the chest. DeMarco hesitates, then sinks back into his chair. Caprio taps his pen once. Officer Russo, confirm we have the body cam audio cued. Yes, Your Honor. Good. Before we play the footage, tell us where you're watching from and subscribe to Order in Court if you're over 50. This case shows what happens when power tries to bend the bench. The clerk steps forward, voice steady. Docket 249847, Commonwealth v. Madison Elizabeth Keene. Charges: speeding through an active construction zone, failure to obey a lawful order, stopping and standing in a restricted work zone, intimidation, and attempted influence on an officer using a public official's name. Citation issued by Trooper Carla Mendes, Rhode Island State Police, Friday at 9:51 a.m. Caprio leans forward. Miss Keene, did you receive a copy of the citation at the scene? I did. And did you read it? I glanced at it. That's not the same. Mr. DeMarco, is your client prepared to address these charges in full today? DeMarco stands again, but his confidence now trembles. Your Honor, we believe the appropriate resolution is to pay the fines and close the matter. My client has no prior criminal record and wishes to resolve this today. Counselor, Caprio interrupts, I didn't ask about willingness to pay. I asked if she's prepared to address the facts. Sit down. He flips a page. There's a note here, prior administrative warning from campus safety 10 months ago. Miss Keene parked in an emergency vehicle lane during a university event and refused to move. Not a criminal case, but useful context. Miss Keene, what happened that day? Madison shrugs. It was raining. I was dropping someone off. Campus security overreacted. The report says you told the officer, you can call whoever you want. You moved your car after how long? I don't remember. The report says 27 minutes. An ambulance was delayed reaching the campus health center. Caprio sets the page down. That's not punishment for today. It's pattern. DeMarco jumps in. Your Honor, my client acknowledges she could have handled Friday's situation better. She's here to take responsibility by paying the fines and moving forward. Mr. DeMarco, paying a fine doesn't teach anything except how to swipe a debit card, Caprio replies. I want to understand what happened. Miss Keene, walk me through Friday morning. Madison exhales, visibly annoyed. I was driving to work on the I-195 ramp near the Providence Place exit. There was construction, orange cones everywhere. Traffic was barely moving. I saw an opening and took it. Some guy in a vest waved at me. I stopped for like 3 minutes. Then a trooper pulled me over and made this huge deal out of nothing. You were clocked at 62 miles per hour in a 35 zone. Workers were present. They were just standing around. Nobody was in danger. Miss Keene, construction zones aren't suggestions. They're people's lives. The work zone report says a flagger had to step back to avoid your car. Madison waves a dismissive hand. I didn't see anyone step back. Your Honor, DeMarco interjects. We're introducing subjective interpretations not material to the citation. Counselor, Caprio cuts in, a flagger stepping back to avoid being hit is not subjective. It's documented evasive action. That's harm. He turns to the officer standing by. Trooper Mendes, please read your narrative into the record. Trooper Carla Mendes steps forward, composed and precise. At 9:48 a.m., I was assigned to traffic control for a Department of Transportation work zone on I-95 westbound near exit 21. The zone was marked with cones, signage, and reduced speed limits. At 9:49, I observed a silver sedan enter the lane at high speed. A flagger signaled the vehicle to stop. It continued for approximately 50 feet into the work zone, blocking the equipment area. I approached the driver, identified as Madison Keane. When I explained the violations, she stated, "My mom is the governor. Do you know who my mother is?" When I continued writing the citation, she stated, "I can end this with one phone call to the State House." Caprio pauses. Trooper Mendes, did you perceive those statements as intimidation? Yes, Your Honor. Madison leans forward defensively. That was sarcasm. I was frustrated by the delay. Let's hear it, Caprio orders. Officer Russo, play the body cam. Just the relevant exchange. A burst of static, then Madison's voice, sharp and cutting. I can end this with one phone call to the State House. Silence. Miss Keene, Caprio says, his tone cool, your mother is Governor Eleanor Keene of Rhode Island, correct? Yes. And when you said you could end this, what did you mean? I was being sarcastic. Trooper Mendes, how did you interpret it? As a threat, Your Honor, an implied consequence for doing my job. Sarcasm doesn't protect road crews, Miss Keene, Caprio fires back. He turns to his clerk. Miss Reyes, were there any contacts to this court or the department before today's hearing? The clerk flips through her log. Yes, Your Honor, 2 calls and 1 voicemail from a number registered to the governor's office. First at 10:14 a.m., second at 10:22, voicemail at 10:38. Play the voicemail. A woman's polished voice fills the room. This is calling from the governor's office regarding a traffic matter involving case number 249847. We'd like to discuss options to resolve this quietly before it proceeds. Please return this call at your earliest convenience. DeMarco stands immediately. Your Honor, my client cannot control what the governor's staff does. This is prejudicial and irrelevant. Overruled, Caprio says firmly. Pressure on process is always relevant. We document, we don't speculate. I'm not accusing anyone of a crime. I'm recording facts. Madison shifts uneasily. I didn't ask anyone to call. Maybe not, Caprio replies. But someone thought it would help. Let's check the timeline. Traffic stop at 9:51 a.m. First call at 10:14. That's 23 minutes. He looks to the clerk. Is Mr. Victor Alvarez available for a statement? He is, Your Honor, by phone. Put him through. A man's steady voice comes through the speaker. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm a field supervisor for the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. Friday morning, we had a crew working on the I-95 ramp near exit 21. Active lane closure, full signage, flaggers posted. At about 9:49, a vehicle entered the work zone at high speed. The flagger signaled to stop. The vehicle didn't stop until 50 feet in, blocking our equipment area. My crew had to pause work and clear out. One car in a live lane changes everything. These workers go home to families. One reckless driver can erase decades of safety. Madison mutters under her breath. Caprio hears it. Miss Keene, if you have something to say it clearly. I said they were just standing there. They were working, Miss Keene. Work zones aren't scenery. They're survival. Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Your statement is on record. The line clicks off. Caprio picks up another document. Ms. Reyes, this is a screenshot submitted by the prosecution. Please read it. From Madison Keane to an unnamed contact. Timestamp 10:30 a.m. Friday. Got pulled over. LOL. Mom's office will call them. Don't freak. Madison's jaw tightens. That was private. It was discoverable, Caprio answers coolly. You sent that at 10:30. The first call from the governor's office came at 10:14. That's 11 minutes. Someone moved fast. Influence is not an eraser. I didn't ask them to, Madison insists. But you expected it, Caprio counters. You told someone not to worry because your mother's office would handle it. That's not frustration, that's entitlement. DeMarco rises again, slower now. Your Honor, I request that the remainder of this hearing be handled off the public calendar. Given the sensitive nature of the governor's office being involved, publicity could politicize a simple traffic case. Mr. DeMarco, Caprio says with calm finality, sunlight is due process. We're staying on the record. He fixes Madison with a steady gaze. I'm going to ask you 3 yes or no questions, and I need clear answers. The courtroom was hushed, the air heavy with anticipation. Trooper Mendes's questions cut through the silence like the sharp snap of a flag in the wind. You in the active work zone? His voice was calm, but every word carried authority. Yes, Madison's tone was measured. Did you ignore my instructions and stop in a restricted equipment area? I stopped when I found a spot, she replied, careful. It was the truth, but not the whole truth. Did you invoke your mother's position as governor during the stop? Madison hesitated, a flicker of defiance in her eyes. I made a comment. That's not a no, Caprio's gaze was unwavering. Yes, Your Honor, she admitted, voice tightening. It feels like I'm being singled out because of who my mother is. The words hung in the room. Madison's voice hardened. People speed through construction zones every day and don't end up in court like this. Miss Keene, this is not about who you raised, Caprio said, measured. This is about what you chose to do when you were stopped. Everyone speeds there. Maybe everyone doesn't call the governor. You're not targeted. You're noticed. Paul DeMarco shifted uneasily in his seat. Your Honor, Miss Keene is a recent college graduate, with no criminal record. A single lapse shouldn't define her future. I agree, Caprio said. That's why I'm treating this as a learning gap, not a character verdict. The room seemed to breathe along with him. The campus safety warning was a whisper. This citation was a sentence, one that could teach the lessons privilege had once hidden. Seconds ticked by, each one a reminder that vests and cones cannot argue with SUVs. Madison stared at the table. Paul's pen hovered. Trooper Mendes stood stoic near the wall. Caprio's voice dropped to a quiet, deliberate cadence. Accountability gets quiet so truth can be heard. Here's my finding. The evidence supports all 4 charges. Miss Keene drove recklessly through an active construction zone at nearly double the posted limit. She ignored a flagger's lawful signal. She stopped in a restricted area. She invoked her mother's position in a way the trooper reasonably perceived as intimidation. The law does not bend for titles or connections. Influence cannot substitute for compliance. He paused, letting each sentence settle like stones in the room. Consequences teach what privilege hid. The base fines total $980, but $450 is stayed, contingent on full completion of a restorative accountability plan. Madison exhaled, the tension in her shoulders visible. Caprio's list was exacting, apologies written and delivered, 50 hours of community service in work zone safety, co-assisting teen safety assemblies, recording a public service announcement stripped of all family references. a driver risk reflection course, and a 750-word reflection on public power versus public safety. Mercy is not a coupon, Caprio said, setting down his pen. It's a contract. Weeks passed. Each task became a small battlefield of learning and humility. Apologies were drafted, rejected, revised, and finally accepted. Madison met Victor Alvarez in a DOT field office, a brief, uncomfortable conversation that cut through pretense. My flagger's kids ask him every morning if he'll come home safe. You made that question real, he told her. Community service was grueling, precise, yet illuminating. Madison learned every cone was a calculation, every flagger someone's parent. She witnessed how work zones were planned, staffed, executed, safety woven into every decision. The public safety assemblies were stripped of cameras, of PR, of recognition, raw human connection, teaching teens that rules were lives, not lanes on asphalt. The PSA recording was a lesson in restraint. Initial drafts referenced family pride, a subtle slip of influence. Re-recorded, it was stripped down to truth. Work zones are lives, not lanes. Caprio nodded, a small gesture of acknowledgement. You stopped borrowing power and started earning character. He signed the form, remitting $350 of the stayed portion. Madison still owed $630, payable in installments over 6 months. But the weight of understanding, of real accountability, lingered heavier than any fine. Months later, the reforms took root. Ex parte influence logs, supervisor cosigns, automatic work zone clearance, political pressure hotlines, and statewide driver education modules, each a testament to the lessons learned in one quiet courtroom. Caprio, finishing his last case on a Friday afternoon, pinned a note card to his bulletin board. Titles expire. Work zone injuries don't choose your side. He turned off the lights, locking the door, leaving the echoes of responsibility and learning to linger, a quiet triumph of accountability over privilege.